We'll move to question time, and Senator Bragg.
Thank you very much, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong.
Senator Bragg, I'm really sorry.
Very loud in here, President.
Senator Bragg has the right to have his question heard in silence, particularly by those on my right. Senator Bragg, start again, please.
Thanks, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Page 294 of Treasury Portfolio Budget Statements state that the expected performance results of the Housing Australia Future Fund for 2025-2026 are as follows. Housing Australia Future Fund Affordable, 0 homes built. Housing Australia Future Fund Social, 0 homes built. Housing Australia Fund Facility Affordable, 0 homes built. 0 homes built. Can the Minister confirm that the government's own budget papers show that the HAF has not built a single new home in 25-26?
Thank you, Senator Bragg. Minister Wong.
Thank you. I'd make a couple of points to the response to.
Order.
Page 294.
Order. Senator Cash.
I want to make
order. Senator Cash, you will recall I gave Senator Bragg the opportunity to start his question again because there was a lot of disruption, and the same equally now applies to Minister Wong when she answers. Minister Wong.
Senator, I believe Minister Ayres yesterday spoke to the Senate about the performance of housing construction over the last few years, and I think he made the point that almost 660,000 homes have been built nationwide since Labor was elected. More than 6,000 homes have been completed with Commonwealth investment, and over 23,000 are in planning and construction phases. So I would just say to you, Senator, it is. He also said, and this was the figure I was asking my staff, and I thank them for their assistance, to find that new home starts are up 26% compared to a year ago.
Senator Bragg.
Point of order on relevance, President. The question was clearly about the Housing Australia Future Fund, not about the private
thank
economy.
you, Senator Bragg. I allowed you the point of order, but I'm not sure. I'll just check if the minister has concluded. No. Okay. Thank you. The minister is being relevant to the question, and I'll continue to listen
Senator,
carefully.
I would make the point to you that you, in fact, oppose the HAF.
Order. 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 I'll remind the Senate once again the minister is entitled to be heard in silence. Minister Wong.
Not only did you oppose it, Senator, but I understand is the reporting that Mr Taylor will commit to abolishing it. Is that right?
Zero.
Now, I do find it interesting that you care about a fund that you opposed and that you intend to abolish. I mean, it does seem to. It's a very interesting position to take, to be critical when you're in fact going to abolish it. But what I would say.
Just a moment. Senator Bragg.
I'm sorry, President, but on relevance, point of order on relevance, the question was, has the HAF built any houses in this financial year?
And the minister is being relevant, Senator Bragg. Minister.
As I said, we have a $47 billion Homes for Australia plan. It includes a HAF. It includes a number of other elements, and what we have seen is an increase.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Bragg, first supplementary.
Okay, we'll try this one. Given the government's own budget papers confirm 0 new HAF houses delivered in 25-26, can the minister also confirm the target of 30,000 Housing Australia Future Fund new homes is listed, quote unquote, at risk? Again, in the government's own budget papers.
Thank you, Senator Bragg. Minister Wong.
Thank you. I think we have been very upfront that this is we have a very ambitious target
of 0.
And
order. 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 Senator Cash. I remind senators on my left the respect for silence during questions asked equally applies when the minister gets to answer them. Minister Wong, please continue.
We on this side do have an ambitious target for more houses. And you know the difference between those of us on this side and those opposite who might sneer and look down their noses is that we actually care about building more social and affordable housing. We actually care about building more houses in Australia. And you, Senator Bragg, are part of a party that does not believe that government has any role whatsoever in ensuring there is adequate housing in this country.
Order. Senator Bragg, second supplementary.
The government's own budget papers show that 295,000 people came to this country in 2025-2026 and that the HAF has delivered zero houses. Minister, will the Prime Minister now admit that his $10 billion housing fund isn't just a failure, it is the failure that is making the housing crisis worse?
Thank you. I'll wait until I have silence. Minister Wong.
This is a government that is committed to building more houses. And that is why and we are a government that is committed to investing in ensuring that more Australians have more access to more homes. And this is a government that is bringing forward taxation changes which are all about bringing more first home buyers, more owner-occupiers into the market, all of which are opposed by you. So if anybody wants to understand what the Liberal Party policy, no matter how much they yell and shout, what the Liberal Party policy is on housing, you know what it is? You're on your own. That's what they're saying to Australians. You're on your own. You know, if you can find some way to tap into the bank of mum and dad, that's great, but otherwise you're on your own. That's the difference between you and us. We actually believe that governments have a role in ensuring there are more houses for more people in this country. You should get with the program, Senator Bragg.
Senator Stewart.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister for Finance and Minister for Women, Senator Gallagher. On Tuesday, the Albanese Labor government delivered its fifth Women's Budget Statement, which showed gender equality remains central to this government's economic agenda. What are the priorities?
Senator Stewart, I'm very sorry. Senator McKenzie, cease, or I invite you to leave the chamber. Please continue, Senator Stewart.
Thank you. What are the priorities in this year's statement, and how will measures to improve gender outcomes make a practical difference for Australian women?
Thank you, Senator Stewart. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you very much. I thank President. I thank Senator Stewart for the question and for the continuing interest in driving gender equality through the budget process. And this government continues with that work in this budget. The Women's Budget Statement outlines the impact budget measures have on women, backed by gender-responsive budgeting, because we believe gender equality belongs at the centre of economic decision-making, not on the sidelines. This is our fifth Women's Budget Statement, the first of this term, and it reports on the significant progress we've made since 2022. In relation to specific measures in the budget, this budget includes $182.6 million for the most significant child support reforms in nearly 20 years, including historic changes to reduce the weaponisation of the system and protect women from financial abuse. It also continues significant investment under the National Plan to End Violence Against Women and Children, including investments for funding Our Ways, Strong Ways, the first ever First Nations safety plan. Investment in the National Safety Plan now sits at over $4.4 billion since 2022. In relation to economic security, a woman on an average of $81,000 could be nearly $3,000 a year better off from 27-28, and that includes with the new Working Australian Tax Offset, which benefits 6.3 million women, and also the instant tax deduction benefit, around 6.2 million women, or 54% of beneficiaries. This budget also includes major investments in aged care, continued investment in Medicare, mental health, reproductive and maternal health, menopause and other services, including the ongoing funding of the Medicare urgent care clinics, which women are using at high rates.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Stewart, first supplementary.
President, and thank you, Minister, for that response. Since 2022, the Albanese Labor government has invested over $4.4 billion to end violence against women, expanded paid parental leave, delivered cheaper childcare, backed fairer wages in female-dominated sectors and invested in women's health. How does this budget build on those reforms to lock in lasting progress for women and families?
Thank you, Senator Stewart. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you very much, President. I thank Senator Stewart for the supplementary. Creating greater opportunity for women is at the centre of our economic agenda, and as Senator Stewart outlined, we have delivered sustained reforms and the results are clear. Over 1 million families are benefiting from cheaper childcare. Eligible families with a baby born or adopted from the 1st of July this year will get the full benefit of 6 months paid parental leave, and super will be paid on paid parental leave as well. Since January 23, women have saved more than $647 million on medicines through reduced PBS prices and expanded PBS listings for contraception and menopause treatment. Our historic women's health package is incredibly successful. We know that 71,000 women have undertaken menopause assessment consultations, and women have saved more than $106 million. I think the figure is from the new listings of contraceptive and menopause
Minister.
treatments.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Stewart, second supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. Since 2022, women's labour force participation has reached a record high. The gender pay gap is at its lowest level on record, and Australia has risen to 13th globally on gender equality. What does that progress say about the difference it makes when gender equality is treated as a core economic priority and not an afterthought?
Thank you, Senator Stewart. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Stewart for that question. And as Senator Stewart has outlined, Australia has increased its ranking on international gender equality ranking from the 43rd when we came to government to 13th in the last reporting period. Gender pay gap at the record low, women earning almost $300 more per week, with a big reason behind that being our investments in those undervalued and underpaid occupations of aged care and early education and care. Women's participation rate is up. Women's employment is up. We've got paid parental leave moving to 6 months, super on PPL. This budget is proof, and when you see it in conjunction with the budgets that have come before it, that are dealing with the structural issues that have been left for way too long, and the women of Australia are over it, we are dealing with them one by one and improving the lives of women across the country.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Patterson.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Minister, the Prime Minister has claimed that his government's budget measures are about intergenerational equity. But 20-year-old Anthony Colmack has said the government tax hikes will, quote, significantly hinder my ability to create wealth as it will ultimately delay the process to save for a deposit significantly. I'll have to save even more to be able to afford what I once would have been able to afford a lot earlier. How can the government call these tax hikes intergenerational equity when young Australians like Anthony are being punished the most?
Thank you, Senator Patterson. Minister Wong.
What I would say to Anthony is...
Order! Order! Senator Henderson, which part of order did you fail to understand? Order on my right. Order. The minister had barely got to her feet when the interjection started. Minister, please continue.
What I would say to Anthony is what I said yesterday, that...
Order!
It's pretty bad over there in Australia, isn't it?
Oh, dear.
It's pretty bad.
Order! Order! Senator Watt and Senator Cash. Minister Wong, please continue.
What I would say... What I would say to Anthony is this. The government is serious about dealing with the the challenge of intergenerational equity. And if you read budget paper number 1, it's very clear that we are risking that great Australian contract, that great Australian undertaking, that we will, as a generation that is in government, we will make sure that those who come after us have a similar capacity to fulfil the aspiration for that great Australian dream. And what I would say to Anthony is that the tax changes that we have put in place will ensure not only additional, along with the other measures in the budget, not only additional housing supply, but also more owner-occupiers coming into the housing market. I would also say to Anthony that negative gearing is still available for new builds. We have not abolished it. What we have done is focused it. We have focused it on ensuring that we have additional supply. I would also note that under this government, unlike what would have happened if Mr Taylor was delivering the budget on Tuesday night, that Anthony will see lower taxes, not higher taxes, as would have been the case under a Taylor government.
Senator Patterson.
Thank you, President.
Order.
Thank you, President. Minister, 19-year-old Paulina Demetrio said the changes will mean young people can't benefit as much from the shares that we have, leaving them with fewer options to build wealth to save for a deposit due to the Prime Minister's tax hikes. Why is the government closing the door on wealth-building opportunities available to young Australians that he himself was able to benefit from?
Thank you, Senator Patterson. Order. 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 The interjections right now, given that I have called order 3 or 4 times, are disrespectful to me and this Senate. If you want to have a chat with a senator on the other side, do it outside, not now during question time. It is not call and response. Minister Wong.
Well, this budget will help about 75,000 Australians achieve the dream of home ownership. So any suggestions, what that means is that more young people—
Minister Wong, I'm sorry. I'm not quite sure why I bothered to try and call order, because the minute the minister stood, Senator Colbeck, you interjected, as did you, Senator McKenzie. Seriously, I don't think I should have to start naming people in major parties. You should know what is expected at question time, and that is that you don't interject, especially the minute after I've called order. Minister Wong.
Thank you. Well, this budget will help about 75,000 Australians achieve the dream of home ownership, and of course housing is so important to that ladder of aspiration and to ensure that people can build wealth. It is a commitment by this government to ensure that more Australians are able to fulfil the aspiration of the most Australian of dreams, which is a dream to own your own home. Again, I say negative gearing and capital gains tax would continue to be available for new homes. And I would say to, was it Pauline? Listen to Mr Wilson. He said the tax system is screwing over young Australians. Instead, it favours the well-off, established interests against those trying to get ahead.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. I'm waiting. Order. Senator Patterson, first supplementary. Second supplementary, sorry.
Thanks, President. It should be enough. Minister, how does an increased capital gains tax on shares make housing more affordable?
Thank you, Senator Patterson. Minister Wong.
The Treasurer and the government have been upfront about, well, first, in terms of housing, I've explained our housing policy. In terms of the Treasurer was upfront on budget night. We are changing the arrangements for taxation of assets, and that is because we need to ensure as a country that we get a better alignment between the treatment of income and the treatment of income from labour and the treatment of income from assets. I think most Australians would understand that is pretty fair, and we are providing additional tax benefit to working Australians on top of the previous tax cuts, that Australians. I don't mind a bit of interjection, but Senator Cash, I know she is very upset with the way things are going on that side, but she has actually not drawn breath in this answer.
Yep.
I just wonder if she could draw breath.
Senator Cash, please stop the running interjections. Minister Wong, did you wish to continue?
I do wish to continue. Thank you. We are offering additional tax cuts on top of the tax cuts that we went to the election with, income tax cuts. And if I may remind you, Senator Patterson,
thank you, Minister.
Income tax cuts you opposed.
Has expired. Senator Waters.
Thanks very much, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. In an interview with SBS News last night, the Prime Minister said that the proposal for a gas export tax was a slogan and that no one seems to know what it means. The ACTU clearly knew what it meant when they proposed a 25% flat tax on all gas exports to replace the broken PRRT. The ACTU has also been clear that a flat 25% gas export tax would have raised $17.1 billion in 2023-24 and would raise far more in the coming year of wartime profits. Does the Prime Minister really think that the peak union body doesn't know what it's asking for when it comes to a gas export tax and is simply spouting a slogan?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
I don't think the Prime Minister and Leader of the Labor Party needs a lecture from the Australian Greens about the ACTU. I think we engage with the other part of our movement, the organised trade union movement, regularly and closely and personally. So I don't think we need any assistance from you in understanding where the trade union movement is coming from, nor the relationship between the trade union movement and our political party. In relation to gas taxation, the point I would make is this. The government has put in place a reservation. The reservation is superior policy. It requires producers, and I know you don't actually think the economy matters. You don't think the economy matters, but we do. We actually think jobs in Australia matters, revenue for Australia matters, good income for Australians matter. The reservation is superior policy because it requires producers to supply Australia first. It will deliver lower and more stable prices and shield the Australian economy, and will ensure that important manufacturing jobs in this country can continue to operate, can continue to flourish, given the importance of energy prices to so much of Australian manufacturing. So that is the real world of working people in which we operate, where we understand the importance of ensuring that the facilities that require access to gas, domestic gas, are supplied, and we understand the workers and the families that rely on that policy, and that is what the government has delivered.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Waters, first supplementary.
Thank you. As the Australian Services Union has noted, the $17 billion raised by a gas export tax is, quote, vastly more than the roughly $2 billion we currently receive under the PRRT. These public funds could resource the vital community services Australians rely on, end quote. Why did the Prime Minister reject the opportunity to tax gas giants to fund services like housing, public health and aged care, and instead raise funds by cutting 160,000 families off the NDIS?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
We're very familiar with the ASU. In fact, I'm a member of the ASU, and I'm also familiar with the campaign that the ASU ran in relation to social and community workers who have seen Labor governments deliver for working people, again, in terms of better wages and better conditions for those workers particularly, and workers more generally, and the case in terms of gender bias in the industrial sector and the work of women particularly being undervalued, also something that this government has acted on.
Oh, sorry, Senator Waters. Senator Waters.
Just a point of order on relevance. I'm an ASU member as well. My question was about why aren't you listening to them and why are you punching down on disability families?
Thank you, Senator Senator Waters. I'll remind you it's not okay to make statements. The minister is being relevant to your question. Minister Wong.
I am surprised that you interrupt me when I'm talking about gender undervaluation, because that is something that matters and that union cares about. But anyway, I'm happy to continue to talk about it. What I would say to you is that the government has been very clear about, in the middle of a fuel crisis and the biggest shock in global energy markets that we have lived through. It is the largest shock in energy in global energy markets that we have lived through. And you might interject
thank you, Minister.
and dismiss
the time
that.
for answering has expired. Senator Waters, second supplementary.
This budget cuts $4 billion from climate and renewable energy programs, while keeping $47 billion for fossil fuel subsidies, giving millions for new gas fields and to prop up the destructive native forest logging industry. Why is the Prime Minister using the budget to keep the gas and coal industry happy, the loggers happy and Labor's corporate donors happy?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
I'm sure that's a supplementary question to this question about gas policy, but I'm going to return to energy policy and say this. This government is working with the community and with the private sector to steer Australia through the worst energy crisis that the globe has seen. And I'd invite you to actually look at the analysis of this. I know this is inconvenient. This is inconvenient. But it is absolutely clear that we are currently living through a shock to energy markets that is the worst the world has seen. And we are making judgments to ensure that Australians get access to the diesel, jet fuel and petrol and fertiliser that our economy needs. And we make no apology for that. And we will continue to do that because that is the right thing to do for the nation and for the community.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Walker.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister for Youth, Senator Walsh. Young people want to feel optimistic about their future. They want a home they can afford and confidence that if they work hard, they can get ahead.
Order.
And again this week,
Senator Walker, I'm sorry. Please resume your seat. Order. Order on my left. Order. Order on my right as well. Order. Senator McKenzie. Senator Walker, if you would start again, please.
My question is to the Minister for Youth, Senator Walsh. Young people want to feel optimistic about their future. They want a home they can afford and confidence that if they work hard, they can get ahead. And this week I'm hearing from young Australians who are feeling hope again. Can the Minister update the Senate on how the Albanese Labor government is listening to young people, taking their concerns seriously and building a fairer future for them?
Order. Order across the chamber. Order. On my right. Minister Walsh.
Well, thank you, Senator Walker, for the question, and how appalling that those opposite try to shout down the youngest senator in this chamber as she asks her question. And unlike those opposite, Senator Walker knows more than anyone in this place the experiences of young Australians.
Order. 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 Senator Cash and whichever male senator who made that comment in relation to Minister Walsh will withdraw it. Well, if you don't think that was unparliamentary, then you need to rethink it. You know it is not my practice to repeat offences. Okay, well that is, again, order. That, again, in my view, demonstrates the level of disrespect that this place has sunk to, that comment by a male senator has not been withdrawn. Please continue, Senator Walsh.
Well, unlike those opposite, Senator Walker, more than anyone else in this place, knows the experiences of young Australians and the challenges that they face. And those experiences and those challenges matter to us, because we are a government that listens to all Australians, and that includes young Australians. So we've handed down a budget that levels the playing field. Too many young Australians have been looking at the housing market and wondering whether the Australian dream of home ownership will ever be within their reach. And the Prime Minister has been clear.
Order.
This generation shouldn't have to say goodbye to the Australian dream. And that's why our budget takes responsible action to help more young Australians into their first home. We are building on the most ambitious housing agenda in generations. More housing supply, more public and social housing, more support for first home buyers. And now, under Labor, tax reform that levels the playing field for young first home buyers.
Minister Walsh, I'm very sorry. Senator Henderson, I've had to call you personally a number of times. You were yelling, without your microphone being on, louder than the minister. As I invited you, no, it's not funny, Senator Henderson. It is not funny. It's rude and disrespectful is what it is. And if you can't keep quiet, I invite you to leave. Minister Walsh, please continue.
This is generational reform, so no wonder those opposite hate it. This is reform to make sure young Australians can get their foot in the door and their keys to a home. And if you're a young Australian in a position to invest, you can still get tax benefits for investing in new builds that add to supply for everyone. These changes matter because home ownership is more than a roof over your head. It is a secure future. So we are doing what it takes for young Australians to be able to work hard to get into their first home and plan their secure future.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Walker, first supplementary.
We know young Australians are working hard, studying hard and trying to get ahead, but many still feel the pressure of day-to-day cost of living challenges. Minister, how does this budget help open the door of opportunity to young Australians to earn more and keep more of what they earn?
Minister Walsh.
Thank you very much, President. Thank you, Senator Walker, again. And under our government, young Australians are earning more and keeping more of what they earn. We're rolling out our already legislated tax cuts for every single Australian taxpayer this year and next year, tax cuts that you oppose. We're delivering our new instant tax deduction, $1,000, no receipts needed. And we're delivering new and permanent income tax for every Australian worker.
Senator Walsh, please resume a seat. Senator Wong.
Point of order, disorderly behaviour. Senator Henderson is very quick to demand courtesy in this chamber, but she offers almost none. Almost none. She has continued to interject against the minister. I ask you to call her to order.
Thank you, Minister Wong. You will be aware. Senator Henderson, it's not a debate. As the chamber is aware, I have called her, Senator Henderson, personally a number of times today, and I've invited her to leave the chamber. I'm quite serious about that, Senator Henderson. And as I said earlier in this piece, I think the role of the opposition is not to be named, but that's what it's coming to, a front bencher on the opposition side being named. And I'm warning you, that's what will happen. Minister Walsh, please continue.
Thank you, President. In addition to our already legislated tax cuts, we're delivering a new and permanent income tax cut for every Australian worker through the Working Australians Tax Offset. And since the Albanese Labor government was elected, the national minimum wage has gone up by more than $9,000 a year. We know the Liberals love low wages. We like good wages for all Australians, including young Australians, and under Labor's new tax cuts, young workers can keep even more of what they earn.
Expired. Senator Walker, second supplementary.
Young Australians want practical support and a government that's focused on their future. They want action that helps them get ahead, to buy their first home, to earn more and keep more of what they earn. Minister, are there any barriers standing in the way of delivering that support for young Australians?
Order. 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 Senator Mackenzie, the fact that you put your hands to your mouth then to elevate your voice again is quite disrespectful. It's incredibly disrespectful. As I said yesterday, you're not at a footy match. Minister Walsh.
Thank you, Senator Walker. And yes, we've been hearing quite a lot from those opposite. They're not listening to young Australians. The person they're listening to is Senator Hanson. And there she is, Senator Hanson, shouting from the Facebook, directing the Liberal Party from Sky After Dark, dragging the Liberals so far from the kitchen tables of everyday Australians they can't seem to find their own seat anywhere, not in the cities, not in the regions, not in the home of the Menzies Liberals in Farrer either. So while all of you move closer to the crossbench, we welcome more of the crossbench moving to us, and welcome again Senator Tyrrell. While all of you lose your minds over there, we are building a future young Australians can be proud of. We are listening to young Australians. We are levelling the playing field for young Australians, because on this side of the chamber we know who we are.
The time for answering has expired. Order. And I remind those on my right, it is not appropriate to clap. Senator David Pocock.
Thanks, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Aged Care and Seniors, Minister McAllister. How many people are currently waiting for a supported home package, and how many people are currently waiting for an assessment?
I'm sorry, Senator Pocock. Could you just advise me who the question was addressed to?
Minister
McAllister. Thank you very much. Minister McAllister.
Thank you very much, President. Thank you, Senator Pocock, for the question and for advising me of your intention to ask it. In terms of waiting for a supported home place, as at the 31st of December, there were 94,963 people in the National Priority System waiting for the allocation of a place. And in terms of the wait list for assessment, as at the 31st of December, 103,527 people are waiting for an assessment. Now, senators will understand, and I think this is a shared value across the chamber, that older Australians have spent their entire lives contributing to their communities and caring for their families, and they should be supported to access the care that they need to grow older with comfort and dignity and respect. And that is why we have made the investments that we've made from government. Because when we came to government, and I'm listening to the interjections from Senator Ruston, when we came to government, the aged care system was not built for the population we have today. And not at all for the population we can expect to have in 10 or 20 years. And everybody will remember how the Royal Commission described the system that was administered by those opposite. It was one characterised by neglect. And so since coming to government, we have set about compressing a decade's worth of reform into a 3 or 4 year period. We've invested more in 3 years than those opposite invested in their 10 years in government, and invested over $4.3 billion in the new supported home program. And these are facts that those opposite don't wish to hear, but this is important work that the government takes seriously, because we respect the contribution made by older Australians, and we're determined to provide the services that they require.
Thank you, Minister McAllister. Senator Pocock, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Minister, for that. I'm a little bit surprised that you've only got figures from December. I would have thought you'd at least have the first quarter's figures. But given that there's more than 200,000 older Australians waiting for care at home, can you advise how many new supported home packages were funded in the budget?
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Minister McAllister.
Thanks very much. And this senator's had a number of conversations about whether or not it is appropriate to add those two numbers and whether that makes sense. And you know, Senator Pocock, that that methodology is not one that the government accepts. But nonetheless, your question goes to the budget. Labor will deliver an additional 32,000 support-at-home places in 2026-27, and as outlined in the budget papers, once we've rolled out these additional places, more than 420,000 older Australians will have access to a support-at-home place. Now, that is almost 3 times as many older Australians compared to those who had a home care package back in 2020 when those opposite were responsible.
Senator Ruston, perhaps you can have your own question. Senator Ruston, I'm addressing you. Perhaps you can have your own question rather than interjecting so rudely from the sidelines. Senator Pocock, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, on Tuesday during budget lockup, the government released 2 weeks late their report into wait times. We now know that there's a triage list, which is a wait list to get onto the wait list, to then get onto the wait list for a support-at-home package. Given we've got so many Australians waiting, why weren't there more support-at-home packages funded in the budget?
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Minister McAllister.
Thanks very much, President. And Senator Pocock, the report that was tabled or published, I should say more correctly, was not late. It was published in line with the government's legal obligations under the Aged Care Act. The government was required to release the report as soon as practical after it was provided by the department, and it did so. Senators, this government and this budget does deliver for older Australians. The Labor government will deliver $3.7 billion to deliver more beds, more packages, better care for older Australians to ensure they get the support they need. And that means 5,000 additional aged care beds each year, principally for those with limited financial means, incentivised through building subsidies, and an increase in restructure of the accommodation supplement. It means faster access to supported home
Thank you,
places.
Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Canavan.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is for the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Minister, in every budget speech delivered by your government before this week, there was a promise to lower the cost of energy through your net zero agenda. But the government has broken these promises as electricity prices have risen by 40% in recent years. This week's budget contained no such promise to lower the cost of energy. Indeed, energy prices were not mentioned at all. Minister, for years you have told the Australian people that net zero will reduce power prices, but now you're waving the white flag. Why is the government continuing down the net zero path when your government won't even promise that it will lower energy prices?
Thank you, Senator Canavan. Minister Wong.
Well, I think if you've wanted a demonstration of the fact that in every way that matters the coalition are acting as a coalition with one nation, I think it is listening to what Senator Canavan has to say. And it is impressive the extent to which he parrots and mimics what Senator Hanson has to say. First, in terms of... No, I'm happy to talk about energy. Senator, what...
You created one nation, Matt.
Order.
Reap what you sow.
Order.
What I would, the number of points I'd make. The first is there was actually quite a lot of discussion about energy in the budget and in the speech, Senator.
Senator Canavan.
There are 5 packages in the budget, and one of them deals with fuel security. And the context of that the Treasurer spoke about is the largest shock to energy markets that the world has seen. Well, that is energy.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Canavan.
President, on relevance, the question went to energy prices, not fuel security, so I just asked the Minister to come back to the question.
Thank you, Senator Canavan. And you also referenced speeches and other things that had occurred, so I think the Minister is being relevant, and I will continue to listen carefully. Minister Wong.
Can I? A couple of points. Well, the government is
Well, the minister sat down because there's, again, interjections. Minister, please continue.
Thank you. The first point I'd make is one of the 5 packages in the budget and the context of the budget that the Treasurer spoke at length about was the energy markets, the state of global energy markets and the way that is impacted upon Australia, and that impacts upon Australia in a number of ways, including through price, and in fact higher energy prices as a consequence of these shocks to global markets are ricocheting throughout our economy, and the Treasurer was upfront about that. That is what is driving, in great part, the challenges that, through supply chains of higher costs, is contributing to inflation.
Sorry, Minister Wong, the time for answering has expired. Senator Canavan, first supplementary.
Yeah, look, thank you, Madam President. Minister, this week's budget reveals that the government is spending another $18 billion of taxpayers' money on its failing net zero agenda. We know that net zero isn't reducing the cost of living for Australians. So, Minister, why did the government choose to spend another $18 billion on a failed energy policy?
Thank you, Senator Canavan. Minister Wong.
Well, Senator, the failed energy policy was the one you contributed to wrecking, which was in the government of which you were a part for some time a cabinet minister and some time not, where you had 4 gigawatts exit the system, 1 gigawatt come in, and as you know, that creates problems with both price and supply. I mean, the reality is that 24 of the nation's 28 ageing coal-fired power stations announced they were closing while you were on this side of the chamber. And you didn't do anything about working out where else supply would come from. What you hope is that the private sector might invest in the past, and it's very clear that the private sector wouldn't. What I would also say is, if you cared about price, why is it that you opposed energy rebates for Australian businesses and Australian households? Why is it that you opposed them? Well, I mean, you're backing it in. You're backing it in. You're backing in your
thank you,
opposition
Minister.
to
The
those
time
rebates.
for answering has expired. Senator Canavan, second supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. Minister, the government had promised that net zero would unleash mining investment in critical minerals. Yet your own budget documents show that mining investment growth will slump to zero by 2027-28. If net zero is working, why aren't we getting investment in mining?
Thank you, Senator Canavan. Minister Wong.
Well, Senator,
Order.
Senator, what I would say to you is that you are a demonstration of the way in which ideology ensured that we had coal-fired power stations exiting with no plan
Minister
for more
Wong,
supply.
please resume your seat. Senator Canavan.
President, I'll take 2 points on relevance and on personal reflection. The
I'm
Minister was
sorry,
asked about
Senator
mining.
Canavan, I can't hear you.
Sorry. I don't think that was my fault.
Please start again.
2 points of order on relevance and personal reflection. The Minister was asked about mining investment, went straight to reflecting on myself. I think the people who work in mining industry deserve an answer about why investment is going to zero.
Minister Ayres, you'll withdraw that comment.
I'll withdraw.
Thank you. And Senator Canavan, I have checked with the clerk, but it is also my view there was no personal reflection, and the minister is being relevant to your question, and I would invite the minister to continue to be heard in silence.
Well, Senator, I wasn't intending it as a personal reflection. It's an observation about the way in which the views of One Nation and parts of the National Party have ensured that we saw power exiting the system with no plan to bring more power into the system. And when we came to government, that was the situation with which we were dealing. And that was brought about because of an ideological position that you and others, led in many ways by Senator Hanson, have expressed, which is you only like some forms of energy, not others, and you don't recognise.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Minister, the time for answering has expired. Senator Hanson.
Thank you very much. Well, my question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher. Minister, documents uncovered by One Nation under Freedom of Information show foreign owners of Australian houses are not complying with Australian laws. Only 1 in 5 foreign purchasers submitted a mandatory disclosure known as the Foreign Vacancy Fee Return last year. Tens of thousands of foreign-owned homes may be sitting vacant and not paying the required fee because they haven't lodged their mandatory declaration. Minister, how can the Australian people have any faith in what your government says about the level of foreign ownership when you've been caught red-handed letting 80% of foreign owners not comply with the law?
Thank you, Senator Hanson. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, and I thank Senator Hanson for the question. And I would say in this budget, the government has extended the ban on foreign purchases of existing homes to 2029. That is included in the budget paper, and that is part of our response to pressures in the housing market and to make sure that Australians aren't competing with foreign buyers for those properties. And it is also interesting to note that foreign buyers peaked under the Liberals in 2017-2018, when almost 8,500 properties were purchased by foreign buyers. This was now down by over 2/3 by the time our foreign buyer ban started in 2025, from 1.8% of buyers to just 0.5% of buyers. And so we have been responding to these. To the issues around making sure that every lever available to us is being used to ensure that housing is affordable and accessible to the Australian community. In relation to the question on compliance, I don't have any further information to provide for that, other than I know from my work at Estimates, when One Nation raises this issue every Estimates hearing, that the Treasury responds about the nature of the compliance work, and I think the ATO as well, on the compliance work that they do to ensure and verify that those arrangements are working properly.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Hanson, first supplementary.
Thank you. Minister, I would suggest that no one in Australia believes that foreign purchases are less than 2% a year. Surveys of real estate agents put the figure as high as 10%. Why won't your government require all real estate sales to be accompanied by proof of citizenship or permanent residency to ensure no foreign purchases are slipping through undetected?
Thank you, Senator Hanson. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, and I thank Senator Hanson for that supplementary. Well, the advice to me and the information to me, and that is information that's provided by the officials that monitor this, is that the foreign buyers' purchases of housing in this country is just 0.5% of buyers. It hasn't always been the case, but that is the information that I have been provided with. And I think that would be more accurate because it would be using the financial records available to government than a survey of real estate agents. But in relation to compliance, since the 1st of July 2023, all acquisitions and sales of residential land by foreign persons have been required to be notified on the new Register of Foreign Ownership of Australian Assets. But also the ATO assumed responsibility for residential real estate in December 2015, and since then,
Minister. The time for answering
I'll provide
has
the
expired. Senator Hanson, second supplementary.
Thank you. Minister, your government is still allowing foreigners to purchase new homes, driving up demand and prices when Australians can't own one. In 2017, the ANZ Bank estimated foreigners owned up to 400,000 existing Australian homes. One Nation says these existing homes should be owned by Australians, not foreigners. When will you force these foreigners to sell their properties, a lot of which are unoccupied, while Australians are sleeping in tents and cars?
Thank you, Senator Hanson. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, as As I outlined in the budget, we have extended the ban on foreign purchase of existing homes to 2029 in relation to the ability to purchase on new builds, and you'll see this from our policies in relation to negative gearing and capital gains tax. We do support investment in new housing construction in this country because it generates supply, and we want housing supply to continue at pace. That is, all of the policies that we are using and putting together are about driving supply. In relation to
Minister Gallagher, please resume your seat. Senator Hanson.
Relevance. My question was, will the government force foreigners to sell up their homes?
Thank you, Senator Hanson. The minister is being relevant to your question, and I'll continue to listen carefully. Minister.
Being relevant, Senator Hanson, because I've answered what the budget documents outline, and the position of the government, which is the policy of the government, is to extend the ban on foreign purchases of existing homes to 2029. That was in the budget. It was extended in the budget. That remains the government's policy.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Ananda Raja.
President, my question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Health and Ageing, Senator McAllister. This week, the Treasurer delivered the Albanese Labor government's 5th budget, which continues the work of strengthening Medicare for all Australians. How is the government continuing to make healthcare more affordable and accessible after a decade of cuts and neglect?
Thank you, Senator Ananda Raja. Minister McAllister.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Ananda Raja, for this question and for your advocacy for public health. Well, the Albanese government is investing so that all Australians can get the health that they need when they need it. This budget furthers that work to strengthen Medicare and deliver real cost of living relief to families all around Australia. We're making Medicare urgent care clinics permanent to lock in access to public health right around the country. It takes pressure off emergency rooms in public hospitals and it makes it so much easier for families. And Senator O'Neill will be pleased to know that we will deliver up to 6 new fully bulk billing GP clinics in the Newcastle, Lake Macquarie, Lower Hunter and Central Coast areas. Now, these communities have historically had low bulk billing rates, and so we are bringing bulk billed, accessible health care directly to them, and all they will need is their Medicare card. We're going to deliver more upgrades to the My Health record so patients and health professionals can access health data in better ways. We're protecting older Australians from higher out-of-pocket costs for intravitreal eye injections, and we are stepping up our efforts to close the gap, improving health infrastructure across Aboriginal community-controlled health services and increasing investment in culturally safe mental health support and for birthing on country. President, free public hospitals are a cornerstone of Medicare, and that is why we are delivering $25 billion in additional Commonwealth funding. That is $25 billion in additional funding for our public hospitals and the doctors and the nurses who are the backbone of our public health system. It is 3 times more the additional funding than under the last 5-year agreement and Commonwealth funding for state-run hospitals, and it will reach a record $220 billion.
Thank you, Minister. The time for
in the
answering
period
has expired. Senator Ananda Raja, first supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. The PBS is a cornerstone of Australia's universal health system, because Australians shouldn't have to choose between the medicines they need and paying their bills. How is the Albanese Labor government delivering more cheaper medicines for all Australians?
Thank you, Senator Ananda Raja. Minister McAllister.
Thank you, President. Well, the budget delivers significant investments to secure the pharmaceutical benefit scheme. That'll mean that families right across Australia will get access to the life-changing medicines that they need at cheaper prices. And our reforms to make medicines cheaper have already saved Australians more than $2.5 billion since 2022. And in this budget, the Albanese government will be pressing on with our work to make medicines cheaper and more accessible. We're continuing new and amended medicines listings on the PBS, including for cystic fibrosis, chronic kidney disease, various cancers and more. We're ensuring free access to the respiratory syncytial virus vaccine for older Australians through the National Immunisation Program, and we're delivering measures to increase childhood vaccination rates through an enhanced immunisation campaign, SMS reminders, and growing the National Immunisation Program vaccination in pharmacy.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Ananda Rajah, second supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. When it comes to getting quality health care, all you should need is your Medicare card, not your credit card. How do the new measures to strengthen Medicare in the budget complement other actions that the Albanese Labor government has taken to deliver affordable health care for all Australians? Why has the government chosen this approach?
Minister McAllister.
Well, thank you, President. Well, in May last year, the Australian people made a very clear choice, and they voted for a government that would stand up for universal health care. And the measures in this budget complement the largest ever investment in the history of Medicare, $8.5 billion. Now, since our investment started on November 1, 2025, there are now nearly 3,800 Medicare bulk billing practices nationwide, and over 1,200 of those were previously mixed billing. Now, people are very quiet over there, but I do want to make this point, Senators. At these clinics, all you will need is your Medicare card. And that means that more and more people will be able to see a GP, and fewer people will have to resort to sitting in their local emergency department. That is actually what delivering for everyday Australians means. Labor is focused on the needs of the Australian people, while those over there are focused on themselves.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Ruston.
Thank you. My question is the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Will the Minister assure the Australian people unequivocally that the Albanese government will not introduce a tax on inheritance?
Thank you, Senator Ruston. Minister Wong.
Congratulate Senator Ruston on her first question for some time. I think it's been a couple of months, hasn't it, Senator Ruston, since you've been given a question, and so I appreciate the opportunity to respond to you at this point. Senator, I note that, given the coalition's inability to actually contest the budget, you know one to contest what is not in the budget. What is not in the budget. We have been very clear about what we are doing and what we are not doing, and what you are asking us about is something we are not doing and we do not intend to do.
Thank you, Minister. I'll just wait for order. Senator Hume. Senator Ruston, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Will the Minister assure the Australian people unequivocally that the Albanese government will not oppose any new taxes on the family home?
Thank you, Senator Ruston. Minister Wong.
Well, I refer to my first answer. I mean, they're so worried about the budget that we've handed down because it is such a good budget for this country that they are now resorting on the second day after the budget has been handed down to asking a range of questions which they know are not things that this government is doing and not things that this government will do. Now, I'm asked about the family home, and what I would say to Senator Ruston is this. I think Australians know which is the party that looks to the welfare and benefit of the Australian workers and their families, which is the party that makes sure that Australian families get Medicare, get decent education, get access to the services they need, and have access to decent wages, and that is the Australian Labor Party, which is why we are where we are and why you are in coalition with One Nation.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Ruston, second supplementary.
Thank you. Minister, the Prime Minister ruled out changes to negative gearing and capital gains tax more than 50 times before the election. As recently as August last year, he looked Australians in the eye and reaffirmed that there would be no changes. Then the budget night came and he betrayed the Australian people. Minister, why should the Australian people believe a single word that your government says because of the evidence of this budget?
Thank you, Senator Ruston. Minister Wong.
So this government always looks to do what is right for the Australian people. That is what we do. And what I really enjoy is the party that pretended to be the party of lower taxes and lower debt and lower deficit. Well, that Senator Hume, now the deputy leader, led them to an election with the man who is now the leader of the opposition, guaranteeing more debt, larger deficits and higher taxes. So now they want to believe that they've actually returned to a lower taxing ideology after the fact they went to the last election saying they actually wanted higher taxes and more debt. Quite remarkable. So what I would say to those opposite, maybe work out what you stand for and who you are before you start lecturing others about anything to do with policy or politics.
Thank you, Minister. Order. Senator Sheldon.
My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Industrial Relations, Senator Watt. Tuesday night's budget was the most responsible but also the most ambitious handed down in decades. It continued the Albanese Labor government's focus on driving wages growth and providing tax cuts for all Australians. Can the Minister outline how the budget will deliver better outcomes for workers?
Thank you, Senator Sheldon. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Senator Sheldon. I would love nothing more than to outline how this year's federal budget will deliver better outcomes for Australian workers. And that's because our government's #1 focus is supporting Australian working families who are struggling with cost of living pressures. And a key part of that is helping them earn more and keep more of what they earn. And this budget will put more money into the pockets of 13.3 million workers with a new $250 Working Australians tax offset. This offset is targeted to workers and represents the most meaningful permanent increase to the effective tax-free threshold since Labor last increased it more than a decade ago. Altogether, our 5 different tax cuts will benefit the average Australian worker by up to $2,816 in 2028. Evening out taxation for those who earn income from work and those who earn it from owning assets. And to help workers earn more, we've announced that we will again advocate to the Fair Work Commission for an economically sustainable real wage increase for our lowest paid workers on minimum award wages. This will help almost 2.7 million workers across the country, including cleaners, retail workers, security guards and hospitality workers, many of whom rely on minimum award wages. These workers are more likely to be women, they're more likely to be employed on a casual basis or working part-time and younger. And I know Senator Hume doesn't support working people on minimum wages. Our government's submission to the Fair Work Commission advocating for a real wage increase is about supporting working people in Australia. This Labor government has advocated for a wage increase for minimum award wage earners each and every year that we've been in government. Since coming into government, the minimum wage has increased by more than $9,000 per year. And of course, we've legislated to protect penalty and overtime rates for these same workers because it's an important part of their pay packet. Something was opposed by the Liberal National One Nation Coalition.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Sheldon, first up.
Since 2022, the Albanese Labor government has had a very clear focus on improving the wages and conditions for millions of working Australians. Yesterday, new data was released by the ABS, which showed that under Labor, wages continue to grow above 3%. Minister, how have wages improved under this government, and what is the government doing to continue this into the future?
Order. 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 Minister Watt.
Thanks, President. Well, we know that for 10 years we had a Liberal National Party coalition government for whom low wages was a deliberate design feature of their economic policy. But things have changed under Labor. New data released by the ABS today shows that annual nominal wages continue to grow above 3% under Labor. Annual wages are growing by at least 3% in 14 of 18 industries. Now, our predecessors never achieved this, and at best they could only achieve 3% wage rises in 6 industries for one lonely quarter.
Minister Watt, can we just stop the running commentary, particularly from you, Senator Hume? I've called you a number of times, and from you, Senator Sharma. That is extremely disrespectful. Minister Watt, please continue.
Thank you, President. But where does the incredible shrinking coalition stand now on these matters? Well, we know that Senator Bragg likes to reheat an old losing policy or two. I'll fight back Bragg over there. This week I informed the Senate of his desire to bring back the Liberals' losing fight-back policy. Well, today it seems that he's keen to bring back John Howard's losing work choices policy. This morning on ABC Radio National, Senator Bragg doubled down by saying, I think we need to be looking again at the IR system. More lower wages, more cut conditions.
Minister, the time for answering has expired, and I will ask you to withdraw those comments about Senator Bragg.
I withdraw.
Thank you. Senator Sheldon, second supplementary.
A main theme of this year's budget is dealing with intergenerational equity by improving access to housing and increasing wages. Minister, how's the Albanese Labor government helping younger workers to earn more, and why is it important that this parliament comes together to support these measures?
Minister Watt.
Thanks, Senator Sheldon. Well, the Independent Fair Work Commission has ruled that young adult workers should earn adult wages, and that happened under a Labor government. This government welcomes the decision to abolish junior rates of pay for 18 to 20-year-old workers in some sectors, meaning tens of thousands of young adult workers will earn more at this important time of their lives. And while we're getting on with the job of supporting younger Australians, what do we see from the endangered species of the opposition? Well, their week started with that catastrophic result in the Farrer by-election, recording historically low votes for the Liberal and National Party in coalition heartland. Then they spent the rest of the week flip-flopping about whether they would enter coalition with One Nation. Senator Mackenzie was first out of the block saying she was for it. The Shadow Foreign Minister was against it. The Shadow Treasurer was for it, and then he was against it. And then we saw Senator Hume on that train wreck interview this week, where this moderate Liberal 8 times would not rule out going into coalition with One Nation. The truth is they're already in coalition, cutting wages, cutting housing, and cutting cost of living relief.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you. Minister Wong?
I ask that further questions be placed on notice.
Thank you.